Sometimes it's not the big things that surprise you when you move somewhere new. It can be the everyday, daily life incidents or moments that really throw you for a loop. Today I'm going to discuss several people that I've known through the years who talked about how hard it was in some ways when they moved somewhere new. Maybe you can relate. If so, please leave a comment and share some of the ways you were surprised when you moved somewhere new. First, I want to talk about the weather or the landscape of an area. I had several people, well, a couple, let's just say two, who these just stick out in my mind. One was a recent neighbor who moved to the desert, and she came from the Midwest where there was lots of water, as in lakes. And she and her husband went to a man-made lake that's nearby here in the desert because there aren't natural lakes for the most part around here. And she just said, that's not a lake. And they left and they've never gone back. And it's a lovely area, somewhere where you can actually see water, because around the desert, you don't get to see a lot of water other than a mud puddle after it rains or something. So it really was disappointing for her. And I think she said she lived on a lake. She had a lakefront home. And so that, moving to the desert would be a big change. She likes it here because where she lived, it got very cold in the winter, and here it doesn't. So, there's trade-offs, but that was a big sticking point for her. Another couple that I talked to had lived in the desert, and they moved to a state with mountains. They were elderly, and they got altitude sickness, both of them, and they had to move. They couldn't stay there. So, these are just things to consider. Like, that was a medical necessity for not staying at their new place. And sometimes your body can adapt. But I know I used to live in an area where there was mountainous and higher elevation. And while I lived there, for one thing, I was younger. And another thing is I had lived there a long time, so my body adapted. But when I go back to this area, the altitude bothers me. I can't really go up in the mountains anymore to higher elevations. And it's just I get nauseous and headaches. It's a bad feeling. And, I'm sure if I stayed somewhere like that and wanted to live there again, I probably could. But the way it makes you feel, you don't want to be there. So that was very understandable to me, that they had to move away down to a lower elevation. I have a friend, Sarah, who moved from the desert to the Pacific Northwest. And the desert's very dry, arid. That's just how it is. And the Pacific Northwest is wetter, considerably wetter, more humid, just more moisture in the air because it rains. Not all the time, but he gets a lot more rain than the desert does. And one thing Sarah was concerned about was she uses a drying rack for her clothes. After she washes them, she just hangs them on a drying rack. And here in the desert, they would dry lickety-split. In fact, I just hung a load of clothes outside, and probably within an hour and a half, they will be dry. Because, the dry air just sucks all that moisture out, dries them right up. But living where she does now, where it's humid and there's just so much more moisture, she had bought a dehumidifier because she could tell there was a lot of moisture in the air. And she set it beside her wet clothes on the drying rack, and she said it dries them considerably faster now. Sucks the moisture out of those clothes. So that was something she had to adapt to. And she didn't get upset about it or anything. It was just different. Just something to consider. And another person, Caroline, who I used to work with when I lived in the mountainous state, she had come there from California, and we had exchanged phone numbers at work, and it was a few weeks after she had started working there, where I did. She called me one Saturday crying and said she hated it there so much. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I miss the ocean," because I don't know how close she was in California to the ocean, but there's no ocean in this other state. And it was very upsetting to her. She just missed it. She couldn't believe how much she didn't know she would miss the ocean like she did. And another thing she was upset about was her apartment was all beige. I don't know if the walls were an off-white and the carpet was beige, but she said she hated it. It was so depressing. And I kind of lost touch with her. I wouldn't be surprised if she moved back to California. She was very, very upset. And one more thing I wanted to touch on was whenever anybody moves somewhere and you don't know anybody at the new place, that can be a big adjustment. If you're younger and you are moving for a job and you have kids, or you have moving for a job or you have kids, those are opportunities to meet new people. At a job, you have coworkers, and some may or may not become friends, but at least you meet some people. If you have children, you generally go to some of their functions. You might meet other parents, and that's another way to make friends, possibly, may or may not. But if you're an older person, like myself, I have to think about that. How would I meet new people if I moved somewhere? Sure, you can meet neighbors, and possibly if you volunteer or something like that, but you really have to put out the effort, more so than when you're younger. And if having a big social circle is important to you, this is something to think about. These small differences can really shape what it's like living somewhere new. If any of this hit home with you, please leave a comment and share which one, really made sense to you or that you've been affected by, or if there's something else that was really a surprising effect of moving somewhere new, please let us know. And if you'd like to do an interview for Living There, this channel, please check out my email address. It's in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, a like. It really helps out my channel. We have some great interviews here already, and I'm looking forward to adding more, hopefully from you. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.